LinkedIn has become increasingly important in our profession. In your experience, what's the optimal frequency for sharing content on my LinkedIn page that maintains visibility without overwhelming my network? I believe that most advice for lawyers on this topic is misguided. And I'd also say that my answer is likely to attract lots of people disagreeing with me. And they'll have, to be honest, they'll have really valid counter arguments to my answer. But my answer is based on working with really successful lawyers who are extremely busy. And it kind of comes at it from the perspective that most lawyers don't want to be career influencers. So it's not their end goal is to be an influencer. I'd also say that most lawyers operate differently to other professionals. So I don't think you can compare like for like with other professionals, because with lawyers, even when they're partners, they're still very busy working with clients. At least that's the common model. So my answer is going to come from that perspective. So let's go back to the question. How often should you post without overwhelming your network? So let's think about, firstly, what's the goal? There's visibility, there's reputation building, and I think they're not mutually exclusive. So it's how do we increase? We want to increase visibility, we want to improve our reputation. I think they kind of go hand in hand. If the goal's inquiries, I genuinely believe you're on the wrong platform. Unless you have like some sort of really low commitment kind of offer, so say it's a review of something, or could be an event or something like that. You're generally not going to get inquiries from LinkedIn, and I think you'll be a bit disappointed if you think that's going to happen like on a regular basis. And another one that I commonly get is I want to build relationships. And I would say that that's also unlikely to happen on LinkedIn. So most relationships will come they might start on the platform, but they're going to have to come off the platform to actually build into a relationship. So it might open a door or start a conversation, which is great, but you're not going to build the relationship on the platform. I thought I'd share a story, just a really quick story on like that in actual play. So one of our vendors is absolutely prolific on LinkedIn. They would post multiple times a day, have a very strong opinion on everything, and so really, really active. Anyway, I noticed that two other connections of mine always liked and commented on this vendor's post. So when I met these people, I actually asked them and said, "Oh, so you know that person, that vendor? They do some work with us." And the response I got from both of them was the same. "Oh, I think I know that person. What do they do?" Now, keep in mind that these people have been engaging with this person's content all the time. And I think that's really common. There's kind of like these LinkedIn networks, but people don't really know who they are. And so I don't think relationships really get built on LinkedIn. I mean, it's one story, it's my example, but it's something I'm sort of seeing over and over again is they're not real relationships on LinkedIn. But let's go back to the two main goals, visibility and reputation building. If we look at how frequently you should post from just visibility, if you just think about visibility in isolation, well, then obviously the more frequent, the better. I mean, if the goal is pure just visibility, and if we put aside how the algorithm works just for a moment, which we'll come back to in a sec, you would say that the more frequent, the better. But if we pair that goal with, well, building your reputation, which I think is really the core of what a lawyer is trying to do when they post on LinkedIn. I would say the more frequently you post, you have this potential that it has a negative impact. So if I look at our clients and the thousands of lawyers that we've worked with over the years, I'd say that the successful ones all have one thing in common, and that's that they're really busy with client work. they still find a small amount of time for marketing and BD, but they do treat marketing and BD as a means to an end. I'd say very few are like overly active on social platforms. I wouldn't say they're not active at all, but it's not like they're posting sort of every day or anything like that. And I think on reflection, that seems right. I don't think people want an expert that, like, publicly it looks like they don't do any legal work because they're always posting on LinkedIn. I think that kind of gives off a very different vibe, and I wouldn't say necessarily a good one. I do think the intention's right, being visible, sharing helpful advice and that type of thing, but I think it can turn negative if it's too frequent. So my rule of thumb is, for anything that's like thought leadership driven or insight driven, I would say every week might be a stretch target. I think every 2 weeks is probably about the sweet spot. But even if you did something like 10 to 15 high quality posts a year, I think that'd be a good result. I'd only post when you have something useful to share. So I know this answer is not maybe what the LinkedIn pros and LinkedIn advisors might say, but I think my answer takes into consideration, you've got a lawyer's goals, which is visibility and reputation building. It also takes into consideration how people choose lawyers. So looking at their buyer behavior. Prospects that have been referred in, they might look at LinkedIn. If the last time that person's posted 3 years ago, okay, that might be a bit concerning, but if someone hasn't posted in, say, a couple of months or something like that, I don't think that's going to deter anyone. I also think about the capacity to do it properly. So even with a support team, the support team's going to be able to help with proofreading, cutting up video, putting images together, that type of thing. But the insights are still going to need to come from the lawyers. And I've also considered like how the algorithm works. And that's, well, it rewards engagement. So if you're posting every 20 minutes, it's unlikely that you're going to get likes and comments and shares on every single post. And that's actually going to start throttling your visibility when you get low engagement on those posts. So you need to have that kind of right balance. I think if lawyers were in like a different industry, so say it was a consulting or training or something, I think it's a different proposition. And I think that lends itself to higher frequency. So I know lots of people might disagree with me on this one, and I think they're perfectly valid criticisms. This is my experience. This is what I've seen work really well for lawyers. I would wrap that up and just say I think it's between every sort of 2 to 5 weeks is what I've seen really work well for really busy and successful lawyers.